Hi there. Tonight's story begins with something simple, an invitation. But not every invitation comes from love. Some arrive wrapped in politeness, but smell faintly of danger. This story isn't about ghosts, not the kind that float. It's about the kind that smile across the dinner table, while quietly hoping it'll be your last meal. So before we get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what we do here. And while you're here, leave a comment with your city and local time. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for soft background noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. It was Tuesday afternoon when the invitation came. A text from Vanessa. We'd love to have you for dinner Thursday night, Margaret. Just a little family gathering, nothing fancy. Nothing fancy! That phrase stuck with me. Because if there's one thing Vanessa Hale does not do, it's nothing fancy. Everything with her is curated, edited, framed for someone else's benefit. Whether it's her throw pillows, her almond milk, or her smile. Still, I typed back. I'd love to. Because that's what you do when your son's wife invites you. Even when your stomach tightens before you hit send. On Thursday morning, I felt it again. The tension. The tug. That unplaceable worry like I'd left the stove on or misplaced a piece of myself. I brushed it off, made tea, watered the geraniums, but it wouldn't go away. And then, Caleb came by. My grandson. 12 years old, sharp-eyed, always watching more than he lets on. He knocked, then peeked in like he had a secret to deliver. Hi, Grandma, he said. Can I sit for a minute? Of course. We sat on the porch. He swung his legs. I sipped my tea. Then softly he said, You don't have to eat the chicken. I paused. What chicken? Tonight, Mom said she's making lemon chicken, but she told Dad she was making yours extra soft. I tilted my head. Soft. He looked at me carefully. Last week, she crushed something with the back of a spoon, then poured it into a tea bag. I didn't speak, just breathed. He continued. I heard her say it was for your rest. But when I asked her about it, she told me to go play. My hand tightened around my mug. He watched me closely. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I reached out, touched his hand. Nothing will. And I meant it, because in that moment, my fear turned into focus. At 6:45 p.m., I arrived at their house. Vanessa opened the door like a game show host. Hair curled, dressed tight, smile wide. You look wonderful, she chirped. You look prepared, I replied. Dinner was set in the dining room, which they only used for special occasions. The silverware gleamed. The napkins were folded into little fans. The candles flickered gently as if waiting for permission to catch fire. Caleb sat next to me. Didn't say a word. Just reached for my hand under the table and gave it one quick squeeze. Vanessa brought out the salad light vinaigrette, nothing threatening. Then came the main course, lemon rosemary chicken, wild rice, steamed carrots. My plate was already portioned, already set. I didn't touch it. Instead, I smiled sweetly at Vanessa and said, Oh, Ruth mentioned she's allergic to rosemary. Perhaps we should switch plates. Vanessa froze. Across from me, Ruth, Vanessa's mother, waved her hand. Nonsense, dear. I'm sure it's fine. Noy insisted gently. Let's be safe. And I reached across the table and made the switch. Ruth looked confused. Vanessa looked panicked. Ethan, my son, said nothing. He hadn't looked me in the eye all night. I didn't eat. Neither did Caleb. But Ruth, she took 3 bites. It happened 30 minutes later. We were in the living room. Vanessa offered coffee. Ruth declined, rubbing her forehead. Then she stood, wobbled, sat back down. Then she slumped forward. Oh my God, Vanessa shrieked. Ethan jumped up, fumbling for his phone. I moved slowly, calmly, knelt beside Ruth, checked her pulse. Shallow. I looked up at Vanessa. Her face was white as porcelain. I'll call 911, I said and did. Vanessa didn't move. Not toward her mother, not toward me. Just froze, like a child who realizes she's no longer playing pretend. At the hospital, they said Ruth had suffered an acute toxic reaction. Something bitter had been ingested. She was unconscious, stable but unresponsive. The doctors were puzzled. Vanessa said, "She must have eaten something at lunch." I said nothing, but I watched her. The way her hand trembled, the way she kept glancing at me, then looking away. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I knew now. This wasn't just neglect. This was intention. Someone had planned for me not to leave that dinner, and they had underestimated just how long I'd been listening. The next morning I woke early, not because I slept well, but because I hadn't slept much at all. It wasn't fear that kept me awake. It was clarity. The kind that shows up when you stop gaslighting yourself, when you stop asking, "Am I overreacting?" and start asking, "Why have I waited this long to act?" I sat at the kitchen table with a pen, a notebook, and a pot of coffee, strong enough to punch through concrete. I made a list, not of enemies, of evidence. Dates, conversations, suspicious changes in tone, medicines I didn't remember requesting but somehow found their way into my pill organizer. Afternoon teas that made me feel groggy for hours after. The time Caleb found me napping on the porch when I didn't remember sitting down. I wrote until the sun came up. Then I closed the notebook and placed it gently in the drawer under the stove, just in case. That afternoon, Vanessa stopped by, unannounced. She never does that. She was holding a paper bag and wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. "Oh, good you're home," she said with a brittle smile. "I just wanted to check on you. Last night was horrible." I nodded. I heard Ruth stabilized. "Yes, thank God. They think it was something she ate." She forced a little laugh. "I mean, we all ate the same thing, right? Except maybe your plate. Oh, wait, didn't we switch?" I smiled. "Yes, we did. Lucky me." She blinked. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "I brought you some chamomile tea," she said, lifting the bag slightly. "You must be tired. It's been a stressful week." She moved to the kitchen, familiar as ever, and began boiling water like it was her house. I followed her in silence. She poured 2 cups, placed one in front of me. "Just a little sugar. No honey. You like it that way, right?" "Exactly," I said. She sat across from me and watched. I lifted the cup to my lips, paused, then gently set it down. "I think I'll let it cool." "Oh, sure." I watched her carefully. She hadn't taken a sip of hers either. "You know," I said softly, "Caleb was very brave last night." She tensed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, he sat through that dinner knowing something was wrong. Knowing that I might be in danger. And he tried to warn me in the only way he knew how." Her mouth twitched. "I have no idea what you're implying." "I'm not implying," I said. "I'm just observing." A long pause. Then she stood. "I should go. I have to pick up Ethan from work." "Of course." She moved to the door. Just as she reached for the knob, I said, "Vanessa." She turned. "Yes." "Next time, taste your own tea first." Her face froze. Then she left. I poured both cups down the sink. That evening, I called Alan Rivera. He picked up on the second ring. "Miss Hale, it's been a while. I need your help. Is it legal?" "It's urgent." He cleared his throat. "I'm listening." I told him everything. Not with panic, with precision. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Are you safe tonight?" "I believe so." "And Caleb? He's staying with a friend this weekend." I insisted. "Good." He paused. "Margaret, this is serious. If what you're describing is true..." "It's not just true," I said. "It's recorded." Alan was quiet for a moment. Then, "When can we meet?" "Tomorrow morning. My house. I'll bring someone else. Quiet, discreet, former investigator. Bring coffee too. I'll be up early." That night I lay in bed with the lights off and the windows open. The air smelled like honeysuckle and the quiet hum of justice getting closer. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry and ready. Not for revenge, for accountability. And this time I wasn't waiting to be rescued. I was already building the case. Alan Rivera arrived at 9:02 a.m. He never did like being exactly on time, always just a little early to throw people off. With him was a woman named Linda Ross, retired detective, now working private investigation. Sharp, quiet, observant. The kind of woman who took mental notes on your shoelaces and coffee choice before you even said hello. I liked her immediately. We sat in the dining room. I served coffee. They didn't compliment the decor. They didn't pretend this was normal. They just got to work. I slid the notebook across the table. Everything I can remember, I said, in order. Linda flipped through the pages slowly. No expression. Just tiny nods here and there. Alan leaned back. Let's start with the dinner. I told them again about the invitation, the warning from Caleb, the plate switch, the collapse. Linda asked about Vanessa's history, financial ties, personality shifts, medication access. She has a key to your home, she asked. Yes, we'll change the locks today. Alan opened his briefcase. We need a full copy of your will, banking documents, power of attorney, anything that shows intent or access. I've already gathered them, I said, handing over a folder. Color-coded. Green tabs for assets, blue for medical, red for anything related to Ethan. Alan smiled. You haven't lost your touch. I've only just started using it again. We spent 3 hours reviewing timelines. Caleb's warning, the tea, the camera footage from my home security system. Linda asked, May I check your tea cabinet? I nodded. She opened it, took out 3 boxes, held one to the light. This box is sealed, she said, but it weighs more than it should. She peeled the tape carefully and pulled out a smaller sachet from inside a Ziploc bag tucked among the tea bags. Alan leaned forward. Inside the bag was a white powder. Linda sniffed barely, didn't react. Could be crushed sedative, she said. Could be something worse. We'll test it. I nodded. I wasn't shocked. I was vindicated. After they left, I locked the door, tight. Then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I played the piano. Just one song. A soft melody I used to hum to Caleb when he was small and couldn't fall asleep. I didn't sing this time. I just played, and the sound filled the house like a promise. The next day, Diana Pierce knocked on my door. My neighbor. 61. Sharp eyes, blunt voice. Dresses like a retired librarian but swears like someone who once ran a speakeasy. I saw Vanessa on your porch, she said. Looked like she was casing the joint. She brought tea. Oh, hell, Diana said. Was it poisoned? Not proven, I said. But likely. She crossed her arms. Want me to stake out the house with a baseball bat? I appreciate the offer. You want cameras? I already have them. She nodded. Good girl. I told her everything. Not every detail, but enough. She didn't gasp, didn't cry, just said, You tell me when it's time. I'll be your second set of eyes. Sometimes strength doesn't show up in speeches. Sometimes it knocks on your door with a thermos and a grudge. That Friday, Alan returned with results. The powder in the tea sachet, Solpidem, also known as Ambien, also known as the drug Vanessa's insurance didn't cover, but Ruth's did. Linda had traced the prescription back to a pharmacy in Vanessa's hometown. 2 years of steady refills, she said, even though Ruth doesn't take it anymore. She was stockpiling it. For someone, Linda said. We didn't speak for a moment. Then Alan asked, Are you ready for step 2? I was born ready, I said. He smiled. We're going to invite them to dinner. The idea was simple. A small dinner. No pressure. A soft reunion. Margaret looking fragile and forgiving. Maybe even thankful. Let them feel confident again. Let them feel safe. And then catch them red-handed. We won't push for a full confession, Alan said. We'll give them the rope. Let them tie it themselves. Linda added, We'll monitor the house from a mobile command van, microphones, cameras, motion sensors, and every inch of food will be controlled by us. I looked at the two of them. Let me make the call. I dialed Vanessa on speakerphone. Hello, Vanessa, I said softly. I was just thinking, maybe we were all too tense last week. Pause. Oh, I'd love to try again. Have dinner at my place. Just the 4 of us. Another pause. Margaret, that's very generous. I miss my son, I said. And I miss you too. A beat of silence. Then she said, We'd love to. I smiled at Alan and Linda. Wonderful. I'll even let you bring dessert. The days leading up to the dinner felt surreal. Not because I was afraid, but because for once I was the one writing the script. Every detail was intentional. The invitation, the lighting, even the music playing softly from the living room speaker Chopin Opus 9. melancholy, elegant, disarming. I baked the chicken myself. Diana helped with the salad, though she insisted on wearing her investigator scarf, a ridiculous paisley number she claimed made her look less stab-worthy. Alan and Linda set up everything else. There were 3 hidden cameras, one in the corner bookshelf, one tucked into the lamp above the table, and one cleverly disguised in the ceramic fruit bowl that Vanessa had once said was too tacky to display. It felt poetic. They arrived right on time. Vanessa wore deep red lipstick and a smile that had no temperature. Ethan looked tired, paler than usual, a man stuck between loyalty and fear. Margaret, Vanessa said, kissing the air near my cheek. You look, well. Thank you, I said. It's been a restful week. We sat. Caleb was out of the house sleepover with a classmate. That had been the one condition I'd insisted on: no children tonight. They didn't argue. Dinner began pleasantly enough. Vanessa complimented the wine, even though she usually criticized my taste. Ethan said the house looked cleaner than usual, and I smiled, nodded, played the role. Until dessert. Vanessa had brought a cake, lemon poppy seed, her specialty. She presented it like a magician with a rabbit. Nothing fancy, she said with a wink, just something sweet for my sweet family. Linda, listening from the surveillance van outside, whispered through the earpiece Alan had cleverly concealed in my left ear cuff. We've tested the cake. Your slice is clean. Hers is not. I smiled. Cut the slices, serve them. Gave Vanessa the first, gave myself the second, waited. Then picked up my fork and said very calmly, You know, Vanessa, it's strange. I never used to like lemon desserts, but lately they've grown on me. She paused fork halfway to her mouth. I'm glad to hear that, she said. Alan's voice came through my earpiece again, steady and low. Let her lead. Don't push. So I did. I took a bite, swallowed, set down the fork, then folded my hands gently on the table and looked right at her. I want to thank you, Vanessa, I said softly, for everything you've done for me this year. She blinked. Oh, of course. You've been so attentive, I continued, checking in, offering tea, even adjusting my medication schedule. Ethan's eyes flicked to her confused. I went on. And now this cake. You've really gone the extra mile. Vanessa gave a tight smile. It's nothing. Oh, but it isn't nothing, I said. It's everything. The room went still. I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out a small black device, a remote. Do you know what this is? Vanessa's face shifted. Just a fraction, but enough. It's for the TV, she tried. I clicked it. The living room television turned on. Static, then video. A clear shot of Vanessa in my kitchen 2 nights ago. Alone, replacing a tea canister, then crushing a pill. Then her voice. She'll be out cold by 8. Just 1 more week and she'll be gone. And then it's all ours. Ethan's face turned white. Vanessa stood up. What is this? This is fake. No, I said. This is evidence. At that moment, the front door opened. Detective Karen Monroe stepped in, badge in hand. Linda followed behind her. Vanessa Hale. The detective said you are under arrest for attempted poisoning and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Vanessa backed away, shaking. No, you can't. This is crazy. Ethan just stared at her, speechless. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Vanessa screamed, You planned this. I stood, walked to her, leaned in close. I survived you, I whispered. That was the plan. They took her away. Ethan didn't speak. He just sat there, eyes red, fingers trembling. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Ethan, I said gently, you have a choice now. You can keep pretending you didn't know, or you can start telling the truth. He didn't answer, but he didn't leave either. He stayed in that chair long after the cake had gone cold. Later, I stood alone in the kitchen. The cameras were off, the mics unplugged, the trap dismantled. But the woman standing there, she wasn't pretending anymore. I poured myself a fresh cup of tea, real tea, safe tea, and I whispered to no one. You tried to erase me, but I wrote myself back in. The house was still for hours after they left. It wasn't the usual stillness of late evening when the wind slides between window panes and the clock ticks with confidence. This was the kind of stillness that follows a storm where nothing has been destroyed, but everything has been revealed. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't call anyone. I just sat at the table looking at the half-eaten slice of lemon cake. And I breathed. Not the shallow kind of breathing you do when you're pretending you're fine. The deep, heavy, lunged kind. The kind that tells your body we're safe now. Safe. At dawn, I walked into Caleb's room. Not to wake him, he wasn't there. Still at his friend's house, just as planned. But I sat on his bed, hands in my lap, and thought about everything he'd carried without ever saying it out loud. 12 years old. And he saw what no one else had dared look at. The subtle, the cruel. The way love becomes a costume when it's worn by people with empty hearts. And yet he never stopped loving me. That's the part that breaks me. That's the part that healed me too. At 10 a.m., Alan called. Vanessa was processed overnight. Bail denied. And Ethan, he stayed. Talked to the officers. Told them everything he could remember. Emails, texts, conversations he had, and ones he overheard. I didn't ask why he didn't stop it all sooner. I already knew. There are some men who survive their marriages by disappearing inside them, by outsourcing their morals for the sake of peace. But when peace becomes poison, even the quiet have to speak. Later that afternoon, I met with Detective Monroe. She brought me a copy of the preliminary report. I didn't read it right away. Instead, I asked her a question I'd been carrying for days. What happens to people like her? Monroe didn't ask who I meant. She knew. She'll face charges, she said. And if found guilty, time. But what about after? The detective paused. That's up to her. I nodded slowly, then said, I'm not interested in vengeance. She folded her arms. Then what are you interested in? Making sure the next woman doesn't ignore the whisper in her gut. She smiled. We could use more women like you. I think you already have them. They just don't all know they're allowed to roar. That night, Caleb came home. He stepped into the kitchen, dropped his backpack, and walked straight into my arms. No words, just the soft thud of his forehead against my chest. After a minute, he looked up and whispered, Is it over? I brushed the hair from his eyes. Yes. At least the dangerous part. He looked relieved, but he didn't smile. I knew something was wrong, he said. I just didn't know what to do. You did everything right. I didn't tell Dad. I sat with that. You told me I said. And I was the one who needed to hear it. We sat on the porch after dinner. Tea for me. Lemonade for him. The stars were bright. The air smelled like rosemary and cut grass. He asked, What's going to happen now? I thought about it. About the house. The will. The headlines that would follow once the charges were public. About how people would try to spin it. Some would say I was overreacting. That maybe Vanessa was just managing my care. That Caleb misunderstood. That Ethan had too much on his plate. But I no longer owed anyone a softened version of survival. So I told him, We're going to keep living. You and me. Honest. Safe. Free. He nodded slowly. Can we plant something soon? He asked. Like a tree. Yeah, a big one. I smiled. Yes, I said, we can. Before bed, I stood in front of the mirror. Same gray hair, same soft skin, same tired lines. But the eyes, sharper, still, wiser. I leaned in, whispered to my reflection. They thought they'd buried me, but I was just planted. And now I'm growing back. Stronger, one root at a time. In the days that followed, the story made the local news. Not the dramatic, splashy kind of coverage, but the quiet, cautious kind. Family caretaker arrested in suspected elder abuse plot. Grandmother's suspicion leads to investigation. They kept the names vague at first, protecting identities, they said. But people talk. In the small towns, don't forget faces. By the weekend, the phone had rung a dozen times. Neighbors. Former church friends. A few people I hadn't spoken to since Richard passed. Some called to offer support. Some called to ask questions they didn't quite have the courage to say out loud. And some called because gossip wears many disguises. I answered only once. It was Mrs. Langley from down the street. She said I always knew something was off about that daughter-in-law of yours. Never blinked long enough to show her soul. I didn't agree. I didn't disagree. I just said, "We're fine now. Thank you." Because what else is there to say? Ethan didn't return to the house for several days. He stayed in a hotel, close enough to Caleb's school. He called me every evening, once just to ask how the tea garden was doing. Another time he said, "I've started therapy again." I didn't applaud, didn't offer gold stars for basic accountability, but I did say that's a good place to start. He asked if he could write a letter to Caleb. I told him, "You can write whatever you like, but what matters is what you do when he reads it." He understood. One night, Caleb came to me holding a small drawing. It was a tree, gnarled, thick roots, big branches. Underneath, in blocky handwriting, he wrote, "Planted, not buried." I didn't cry. I just taped it to the fridge. That's where truth lives in this house now, on display next to the grocery list and the emergency contact sheet. The following week, Diana knocked. She brought muffins and her usual sass. "You'd better not be planning to forgive that whole family just because they sent you a fruit basket," she said as she pushed through the door. "No fruit basket," I replied. "Good, I'd throw it out." We sat at the table, drank coffee, and talked about normal things. Garden centers, library hours, whether the new mailman had a criminal record or just unfortunate eyebrows. Then she leaned in and said, "I hope you know what you did matters." "I do," I said. "Good, because some of us are watching." I nodded. "Some of us have always been watching." She smiled. The next milestone came quietly. A brown envelope in the mail, no fanfare, inside court documents. Caleb's temporary guardianship transferred to me. I stared at the letter for a long time. Not because I doubted it, but because it felt like an exhale I hadn't realized I was still holding. I'd spent so long wondering if I'd live long enough to matter. And now I'd been trusted to raise. That night, Caleb helped me change out the sheets in the guest room. "Do you think Dad will ever come back?" he asked. "To live here?" "No, to himself." I paused. "I think he's walking toward it," I said. "And some roads are longer than others." He nodded like he understood. Then he said, "I'm glad you didn't die." I smiled, holding back the well of grief that tried to bubble up every time he said things too big for his age. "I'm glad I didn't too." He hugged me, awkward and preteenish, but tight. I started writing in the mornings. Not a journal, not a memoir, just pieces, thoughts, observations, sentences I'd forgotten I had in me. Some of them were angry, some were hopeful. Most were just honest. One read, "They didn't just try to take my life, they tried to take my voice. And now I write not because they failed, but because I won." Another said, "Justice isn't a courtroom. Sometimes it's a kitchen table you're still able to sit at 3 meals a day with no fear in your tea." Caleb and I planted the tree that weekend. An oak, strong roots, room to grow. He named it Helen because she survived. I didn't correct him. I just patted the soil and whispered, "Yes, she did." The frost came early that year. Thin white film over the garden beds, the kind that disappears by mid-morning but leaves everything a little quieter, a little slower. Caleb said it looked like the world had paused. He was right. We were in a season of pause. Not grief, not chaos, but the kind of pause that comes after truth finally settles into the walls of a house. The kind where you don't have to flinch at the sound of footsteps anymore. In mid-November, we went to our first family counseling session. Not the kind with tea and soft pillows. The kind with stacked chairs, a box of tissues in the center of the room, and a counselor who'd seen more generational trauma than any one human should have to carry. Ethan came on time. He sat quietly, answered honestly. "I didn't plan to hurt her," he said, "but I also didn't plan not to." The counselor nodded. "That's a heavy admission." He looked at me, then eyes clearer than I'd seen in years. I watched it happen. I heard Vanessa say things I knew were wrong, but I told myself it wasn't my place, that she had reasons, that I needed to keep the peace. I said nothing, just listened. He added, "I didn't lose my mother last year. I left her. And that somehow hit harder than any poison ever could." Caleb didn't say much during the session, but afterward, in the car, he asked, "Does it make you feel better to hear him say all that?" I thought about it, then said, It doesn't undo anything, but it means he's finally stopped pretending the knife wasn't in his hand. Caleb looked out the window. That's heavy. It is. But truth always is. The first snow came on Thanksgiving morning. Just a dusting, enough to paint the rooftops and line the edges of the porch rails. We stayed home. No big gathering, no feast. Just soup biscuits and gratitude that didn't require carving. Ethan dropped off a pie. He didn't stay. He just rang the bell and left it on the doorstep. Inside was a note. I'm thankful for the chance to still be your son, E. I read it, folded it, placed it in the drawer next to the custody papers and court transcripts. Not because I planned to forget, but because I wasn't letting it define the air in the room anymore. That weekend, Diana and I organized a local workshop through the Still Foundation. We called it Red Flags and Teacups Spotting Manipulation in Everyday Care. 20 women showed up, 4 men, 1 teenage girl with her grandmother. We talked about control masked as concern, about medications administered without consent, about phrases like you're imagining things and don't worry your little head. We laughed more than we cried. And when it was over, one woman hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs might crack. She whispered, "You made me brave." I didn't say anything, but I felt taller on the walk home. December brought cards, too many of them. One from Ethan's in-laws, one from a cousin I hadn't seen in 15 years who wrote, "Heard you had a dramatic year. Hope you're recovering." I tossed most of them, except for the one from Ruth Bennett, Vanessa's mother, the one who had almost died in my place. Her handwriting was shaky, but still hers. Margaret, I'm in a facility now, recovering slowly. They say it'll be another 6 months before I'm walking unassisted. I don't remember everything, but I remember the look in your eyes when you switched our plates. You knew, and you saved me anyway. I think about that every day. If you ever want to visit an old fool who didn't see her daughter clearly, I'd welcome the company. Warmly, Ruth. I kept that one. Pinned it next to Caleb's drawing of the tree. Planted, not buried. That's what we both were. At the end of the year, we lit a candle for the people who didn't make it out. Not just the dead, but the silenced. The ones who never got their tea tested. The ones whose families insisted they were just confused. The ones who were erased before anyone thought to ask what was really happening. We lit that candle, and then we made tea, the safe kind, and sat in the living room together. Survivors, rooted, still. The new year came without fanfare. No fireworks, no champagne. Just the slow, quiet flip of a calendar page and a sense that nothing needed to be resolved, only remembered. We were already in motion, already healing, already choosing. I didn't need to start over. I just needed to keep going. One morning in January, Caleb came into the kitchen holding a book. "Can we read this together?" he asked. "It's for school, but it's kind of heavy." I took the book, Of Mice and Men. He was right. It was heavy. We read it slowly. A few pages a night. He asked about the loneliness in the story. Why people hurt each other when they're afraid. I told him sometimes people are scared of losing control. And hurting someone else feels like the only way to hold on. He thought for a moment. Is that why she did it? I didn't need to ask who she was. Yes, I said, but fear doesn't excuse cruelty. Caleb nodded. Good. I don't want to grow up into someone like that. You won't, I said. You already see too much. And he smiled, a small, tired, hopeful smile. Later that week, I got a call from a journalist. Not a local one, this time national. She'd heard about the Still Foundation through a legal advocacy group. Wanted to feature our story. I hesitated. It's not about making you look like a hero, she said. It's about making sure people know they're not alone. I agreed. Not for me, but for every woman still sitting across the dinner table from someone who wants her gone. The article came out in February. The woman who switched plates and lived to tell it. It was thoughtful, precise, didn't exaggerate, didn't gloss over, told the story the way it happened. There was a quote from me at the end. They didn't just try to kill me, they tried to erase me. But I didn't disappear. I watched, I waited, and then I saved myself. The piece went viral. People wrote letters, emails, sent flowers. But the one that stayed with me was a short, handwritten card from a woman in Montana. I'm 81. I'm next. But not if I have anything to say about it. Thank you for giving me my voice back. Lorraine. I sat with that letter in my hands for a long time. Not crying, just breathing. Because that's what survival sounds like now. Steady, quiet, and absolutely certain. Caleb asked if we could plant another tree in the spring. A fruit tree this time, he said. Something that gives. I like that. He picked a plum. Because people underestimate it, he said. They think it's boring, but it's sweet. So we marked the spot, wrote it on the calendar, March 14th, Caleb's plum. A tiny ceremony, just us. And maybe Diana if she brings that ridiculous scarf. One night, Ethan stopped by, unplanned, but not uninvited. He brought groceries. Not out of guilt, but out of practice. He knew how to walk into this house again now. He made dinner. Simple pasta. Didn't talk much, but didn't avoid anything either. After Caleb went to bed, we sat on the porch. Blankets, tea, steam rising in the cold. I still remember the look in your eyes that night, he said quietly. At the dinner table. When you said, "Thank you, Vanessa." You were supposed to, I replied. That's why I said it. He laughed low and bitter. I'm trying to forgive myself. You can't rush that, I said. Shame clings, but it doesn't have to anchor. He looked at me. I want to be better. Then keep choosing better. He nodded. That was enough for now. After he left, I sat a little longer. The wind stirred. The night made its usual music, an owl, a car in the distance, the faint rustle of the rosemary bush. I whispered, thank you. Not to Ethan, not to fate, just out loud. Because gratitude, like grief, needs room. And now I had room, and I had time. Spring arrived the way it always does in this part of the world, like someone gently pulling back a curtain. First the wind softened. Then the daffodils bloomed without asking, and suddenly the world felt open again. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding my shoulders through winter, but now I could exhale. Caleb's plum tree arrived early, a bit crooked in the pot with roots eager to stretch. We unpacked it together, laid down the soil, and marked the spot with a painted stone. He wanted to write something on it. I handed him the chalk marker, expecting something like Caleb's tree or Spring 2025, but he wrote, "Planted in Truth." I touched his shoulder. That's a good name. He shrugged. It's yours too. Later that week, I gave a talk at the local senior center. It wasn't fancy, just a small circle of folding chairs, stale coffee, and women with lives longer than many novels. We spoke about boundaries, about silence, about the moment when caretaking becomes control. One woman asked, "How did you know it was happening?" I said I didn't know. Not at first. I felt it, long before I could name it. She nodded slowly. Another woman, tears in her eyes, said, "I wish I'd listened to that feeling." I reached for her hand. You still can. That night, Diana brought over soup. Don't ask where I got the recipe, she said. Just pretend it's edible. It was delicious. We ate on the porch, wrapped in blankets, talking about nothing and everything. I was thinking, she said, between spoonfuls, you should write a book. I laughed. About what? About survival. About how not to drink tea handed to you by your daughter-in-law. I smirked. Maybe I'll call it Sip Carefully. Perfect. I'll do the cover art. We clinked mugs, unofficial but solemn. The next morning I found Caleb in the garden with his notebook. Writing, I asked. Trying, he said. He flipped it open and showed me a poem. The last line read, "She's a tree now. She grew past the hands that tried to cut her down." I blinked twice. He looked up. Too dramatic. No, I whispered. Just right. Ethan visited that weekend. Brought tools. Fixed the loose step on the porch. Didn't expect praise. Afterward, we sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. He didn't ask for forgiveness, but he did offer something better. He said, I don't know if I'll ever deserve a second chance, but I'll earn it anyway. I nodded. You're welcome here, I said. Not because I forget, but because I believe people can choose who they want to be next. His eyes welled, just a little, and I let that silence speak for us both. In April, the Still Foundation launched its mentorship program. Pairing survivors with women just starting to name their experience. I matched with a woman named Nora, 65, soft-spoken, a retired school nurse whose daughter had slowly taken over everything from her passwords to her prescriptions. She said I didn't want to make waves. I just didn't want to die a burden, I told her. You weren't born to be a weight. You were born to be a witness. She called me 2 weeks later. I moved out, she said. Found my own apartment. Bought my own groceries. First time in 2 years. I smiled so hard my face ached. You're already blooming, I told her. Caleb asked me once if I was proud of myself. We were walking through the farmer's market arms, full of radishes and sourdough. I paused, thought about the question. I think I'm proud of the way I kept getting back up, I said. He nodded. Me too. We didn't say anything else, because sometimes the truest things don't need to be repeated. They just need to be felt, like sun on your face, or roots under your feet, or the quiet joy of stillness that no one else can take from you. Not anymore. It was early May when the letter came. Handwritten, soft blue envelope, no return address. I opened it slowly, expecting maybe another message from a stranger who read about the case. But it was from Ruth Bennett, Vanessa's mother. Her writing was steadier this time. Margaret. It's strange, isn't it? The way survival binds people. I never expected to feel grateful for the night I almost died. But it gave me something I didn't know I needed clarity. Clarity about my daughter, about my silence, about the way I convinced myself you were being dramatic instead of being right. Thank you for saving me, for switching that plate, for believing your instincts when no one else would. If you're ever near Richmond, I'd love to sit with you. No lemon cake, just tea, I promise. Ruth. I folded the letter and placed it on my desk. Didn't cry, didn't call, but I thought about her all day and silently hoped she too was planting something new. Mother's Day came and went. No cards from Vanessa, no messages from anyone in her orbit. But Caleb made me a drawing. A tree again. This time with deep purple fruit hanging from its branches. And beneath it, one word in blocky all-caps handwriting. Enough. He meant we had enough. Of truth, of peace, of each other. I framed it, hung it next to the front door. By summer, the foundation had opened a third chapter, this one in Michigan. Nora had become a mentor. She called me after her first session. You were right, she said. My voice isn't broken. It was just waiting for someone to listen. I told her, we all are. And it's true. Most of us don't want revenge. We want to be heard, believed, named, not erased. The garden bloomed in ways that felt personal. The plum tree stretched taller than expected. The rosemary came back stronger than ever, and the lavender, my old nemesis, finally held. Even the wind felt different, softer, less questioning. One evening, I took down the old photograph from the hallway, the one of Richard and me standing in front of the Armstrong house 25 years ago. I didn't take it down because I wanted to forget. I took it down because I didn't need to prove I'd been someone anymore. I knew it now, and knowing it was enough. That night, I lit a single candle in the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea. Not chamomile, not lemon, just black tea with milk, like I used to make before the pretending began. I took it to the porch, watched the stars blink into view one by one, and I whispered to no one, to everyone, to myself. They tried to take everything, but I still had myself. And that was all I needed to begin again. Let's slow everything down now. Let the air cool around your shoulders. Let the last of the tea settle in your cup. Let your body unclench in places you didn't realize were still holding on. Because you made it to the end of something tonight. Not just a story, but maybe a belief. The one that says you're too old, too small, too dependent, too easily ignored. You're not. You're still here. And there is nothing small about surviving someone who wanted you silent. There is nothing forgettable about refusing to disappear. You don't owe forgiveness to those who tried to dim you. You don't owe softness to people who saw your trust as a weakness. You owe yourself something else: stillness, safety, and the sacred right to say no more without explanation. You are not just a supporting character in someone else's performance. You are the author, the witness, the survivor. And if you ever wonder if you're allowed to speak, if you're allowed to reclaim, let this be your answer. Yes, yes you are. So rest now. Feel the roots under you, the sky above, the quiet power within. You are planted, not buried. You are enough, not erased. You are still here, still strong, still becoming. Good night, friend. You made it.